yeah, I'm not an artist. I've written a few short stories for FirstStorm.
Hi there. Do you like toast?
It's something to do. It's something to do. But yeah, I also run our website. So if you have any questions about getting your own website, running it, hosting things of that nature, I can answer that for you. Also, how about organizing meetings? So I'm more of an administrator than anything else. But even then, it's good to have a different mix of people to get feedback from. Even though technically they're not writers and I'm not an artist, you can still kind of say, oh, that looks weird. Okay, that sounds good. This might be better. We improve each other's work, by collaborating. So are we waiting for Q&A?
Yeah, go so the banner's up there. Okay, so how many, by show of hands, how many here are working on artwork or they want to, or how many are really here for what we're talking about? You guys just
doodle.
Doodling's fine. Doodling's fine. Okay, so who has a question? And we'll do our best to answer it. Come on, let me start. Well, she had her hand. She had her hand up first. She's just really. It took her forever. Okay, what's your question?
Like, I'm trying. When I'm mine are nowhere near good whatsoever compared to anything. But every single time I can't figure out how to draw guys. Do you have any tips on how drawing like male men?
Like just kind of basic like physical structure or face structure.
Okay.
Chelsea's about to pop. Say something.
Okay.
I have a seizure here. Okay, so I draw a lot of guys, and basically what you want to do for men, their torsos are a lot longer than women. I happen to have a long torso, so I'm only half men. But basically, like, where women, you probably like cut them off at the waist about here. You want to extend it down a little bit and make it. Basically, guys, most like the normal guy has like not much of a curve to his waist.
Right, yeah,
kind
the
of a
broad
flat
shoulders, the smaller hips, bigger feet, and I like the basic anatomy, like drawing the face.
Drawing the face,
they like, look like girls.
Okay,
Like,
so girls tend to have like kind of rounder faces, and guys tend to have more angular, like narrower faces. Now, obviously your mileage may vary based on person. But generally what I try to do is I try to make, instead of like doing like a circle for the head, I kind of like flatten it out into like ellipses to do.
Tell you what, find our tables after this, and we'll both give you kind of like each our interpretation on how to structure the male or female face. Okay?
Yeah.
We'll give it because it's something that we really kind of have to draw out.
Right.
It's kind of hard just to explain like that.
Everyone has their own separate ways of like drawing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I mean, I'm saying she can just come by and get 2 or 3 different examples and turn it into her own. Does anybody else have anything for that other than that?
When are you guys going to get your art?
After this, we'll be probably like 3:15. We'll be there.
Yeah. You can even follow us back to our table.
I guess a similar question. I guess my daughter is the artist, but she's drawing anime art. Is it important that maybe she learn traditional art techniques first before, or can she just jump straight into
Yes, it is important. If you can, anime is just kind of like a stylized form of traditional art in many ways. So is cartooning, all that type of stuff. So if you can get to where you can learn to draw realistically as much as possible, then it's going to make everything else easier. I have a full traditional art background, and it's just kind of things that it does make things easier because you're going to go through all the stuff people think is boring, which is breaking things into shapes and learning all that type of stuff. But those are necessary foundations to get your stuff to where it looks really clean, to jump from kind of amateur to professional. And that's a blurry line because there's a lot of really good stuff out there, but it's more of an abstract kind of art, but it's just something about it that gives it more kind of like, I'm above this level kind of quality. But
just
well, We'll come back if you have another question. Anybody else?
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
The first one is I've seen a lot of pictures from people where it has really good Photoshop and stuff. Do you know about any good guides for that? Because I'm not really good at Photoshop.
Just searching on the internet, just looking at Photoshop
YouTube.
techniques. YouTube has a lot of resources.
YouTube has like 1 million Photoshop tutorials.
Yeah.
It's
And
great.
if you want to look at books, there's a series called the Missing Manual series, which is like, it has CS3 Flash, like Photoshop, that kind of thing. I learned Flash through the Missing Manual, and it's incredible. It's really good, and it shows you a lot of cool tips on how to do stuff.
Second question.
And I'm also kind of creating my own little manga, but yeah. And I'm kind of afraid that the script is too much similar to 2 other popular anime that I know.
Basically, you're going to run that into anything. Anything you create, no matter how original you think it is, someone's going to be like, oh yeah, this is like, this is like blah blah blah, because that's how people associate things. They always relate it to something else. You
And
know
I
what
feel
I mean?
like it's too much like those.
It's a fine line.
Yeah, if
It's a fine line.
it
But
depends what you're saying. If it's like 90% like those, if you feel it's 90%, then you may just want to change some of it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But then again, if this plus the thing about in the manga, like if it was strictly just script, like you wrote a book, and it was a little too much like someone else's book, that's one thing of it. That's too close. But if your characters don't look the same, or if the art style's not the same, then you can probably get away with it. I don't think you should be too worried about any copyright things, or and as long as nothing is actually like word for word the same.
And that's the thing about manga and anime and that kind of stuff. Like people look at stuff like card captors. People say, well, that's the only thing like card captors there is. That's kind of true, but not necessarily, because the whole magical girl genre, there's whole genres of that kind of stuff that have been around. The magical girl genre has been around since like the 1950s, 60s. So to say like, oh, it's too similar to that thing, well, you can have millions of different variations on one thing. It's kind of like when you have soup. There's many different kinds of soup, but it's all soup. That's how I think about it.
You might get fan flack, meaning there are fans of the anime or manga that yours is very similar to. That they may call yours out as being a copycat, but you wouldn't have to worry about the industry coming down on you as far as It's kind of like Avatar. Who saw Avatar? Right? It was basically Pocahontas with blue people. That's all it was. That's all it was. Okay. It's the exact same story, just bigger budget. Yeah.
Also, if what you're asking, and I don't know if this is what you're asking, like places to draw inspiration from, because sometimes I feel like the stuff I get is like I'm drawing inspiration from other anime, and that's why it's like that. So there's a feature on Flickr that is like the random photos / taken in the last 7 days / like the best photos of Flickr, and look through those pages and see if anything strikes you. That could be a setting, that could be a birthplace, that could be anything. Think about other things you like besides anime and try to draw from that, because if you bring in different components, it'll be completely different from what the anime is drawing from.
Yeah, I just feel like it's more my manga. I feel like it's like a cross between Tokyo Mini and Sailor Moon.
Okay.
Like what I'm wearing is actually from my character from my manga.
I see.
Well,
And if worse comes to worse, you can always say, well, it's not a copycat, it's an homage.
it is.
to
Yeah.
the-
Yeah.
And also, and even then, if you're getting bad feedback, but people are still reading, that's not necessarily a bad thing. People are still reading. Word gets around. Even if it's, bad feedback. Drawing from my own experience, I did some voiceover for this gentleman that has a website for some videos of his, and the feedback I got on my first 2 was horrible. Like, this dude's terrible, he's monotone, and this and that, and this and that. I was like, well, yeah, he kind of is right, but people kept watching, and he kept getting hits, and so I was like, I kept waiting for him to fire me, which is weird because I wasn't getting paid for it. But I was just waiting for, yeah, dude, you stink, you're not doing any more of my voiceovers. But he's like, yeah, here, do another one.